Hello and welcome back! I am Lord Revonworc. This is Crusader Kings II, Return of the Jewish Aztecs. Now, I would like to announce, as of yesterday actually, I have decided, due to difficulty in finding time to record, I will be putting my XCOM series on temporary hiatus, long enough to for me to finish up my my semester at college, because it's really, that's the main thing that's eating into my time. And so I will return to XCOM once I finish up this semester. But for now, since I don't want to just keep reducing the length of my recording week, I've decided to re-expand CK2 into a 3-week, 3 weeks. No, what am I saying? 3 episodes per week. Yes, that is what I definitely decided. Now, right now, I am Pishki Aleksandar the Victorious of the Isles. My son, Victor, is being groomed for my heir, and he remarried, and his wife just happens to have the same name, so I'm going to pretend it's just the same woman. Maddie! So glad to see you back here again. So, as you may recall, I recently changed the law to be agnatic elective. Now, we do have a few people who are not voting for my heir. However, they're a minority. Everyone likes the idea of Victor of Ulster becoming the next King of the Isles. Everyone except for me. Now, see, at the moment, we have the gold to create the Kingdom of Scotland, spelled with a K because its last king was a Viking. See? I still have no idea how that happened. It really shouldn't have. But it did. It's unusual. But whatever. He's not the king anymore. Now there is no King of Scotland, and it is ripe for the taking of the only one who controls all of it. Who is me. Now, given my money and the fact that I really need to have spare money to hire the mercenaries in the event of a war, if I were to found the Kingdom of Scotland right now, it would be foolhardy. I'm well aware of that fact. Those mercenaries are crucial to the defense of this kingdom, and if I found the Kingdom of Scotland right now, it'll take a while to get back there. I'll lose 200 gold and 200 piety, but I'm not as concerned about that. We've actually got decent... What? Oh. Never mind. Holy Site of Sinai is not settled. Okay, so Jewish moral authority isn't actually that high. How do my fellow Jews over here fare? Khazaria is still strong. Looks like they've actually eaten into the Petchings a little bit. Regrettably, the Jews of Semyon have long since been subjugated. That's sad, but it was going to happen eventually. Wow, I got really off track. So, I've decided, against my own better judgment, I would like to found the Kingdom of Scotland now, because I've always wanted to have this kingdom founded within Aleksandar's lifetime. It's historically been difficult for me to go from Duke to Emperor in just one lifetime, but Duke to King, that's easily doable. Well, may not necessarily be easy, but it's doable. Anyways, the point is, Aleksandar's earned this, and I very much want it. Besides, this is his ambition to become the King of Scotland. And he's not getting any younger. He's 52 years old. He's maimed, which is taking away a large chunk of his health. Honestly, I think it's time. Mark this day, January 1st, 894. As the day Wakel Pishki Aleksandar the Victorious of the Jewish Aztecs named himself King of Scotland. Huetlatoani Aleksandar the Victorious has created the title Kingdom of Scotland. Ah, it's beautiful, isn't it? And I have gotten a promotion too. No longer Wakel Pishki, I am the Huetlatoani. Honestly, it might not be a bad idea to start doling out my duchy titles. I think I'll hold on to Lothian, but Duchy of the Isles. It's a bit larger than the Duchy of the Isles is supposed to be. I mean, according to this, it legally constitutes, half the kingdom. The Isle of Man, all of our Irish and English holdings. I think Galloway here is included accidentally just because that's part of Victor's holdings, and then the two de jure provinces. So if I wanted to make one of these guys ruler of the Isles, who would I go with? Touchedly. No. Insegal is probably the province that should be the capital of this duchy. Oh, right, I need to renominate my successors. But I'm sure people will support him very much, very highly. Anyways, one thing I wanted to discuss. By the way, I would like to raise crown authority and centralization. I can't do them simultaneously, though. I'm sure people will vote on that. Now, one thing I wanted to discuss, I got a comment from a fan. His name is Bernard Kemp. I think I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. This guy has been the one who's commented the most on me, and I have to say to this Bernard, keep it up. Keep it up. I love reading comments. I don't always get to them on time, but it's nice to know that people want to participate. Anyways, he asked me to found the Kingdom of Scotland and rename it with a Jewish Aztec name. Now, keeping that in mind, I went and did a bunch of research trying to figure out what to actually name it. Specifically, I tried to look up the Hebrew and Nahua names for Scotland, see if there were any I liked there. So, first of all, the Hebrew word for Scotland, I was able to get that from Google Translate. Now, I understand Google Translate is not a flawless translation program, but it's still better than a lot of the other ones you find on the internet. And it's one of the few ones I've been able to find that can actually translate proper nouns. You have no idea how uncommon that is. Google Translate does it fine, and I needed a translation program that could translate proper nouns because Scotland is a proper noun. So I typed in Scotland and got out the Hebrew word for Scotland, and it looked like this. Note to self, make sure you actually put the Hebrew word for Scotland on the screen at this point, because, that's sort of important for people to understand it. Yeah, so anyways, two things are important to understand here. Number one, that the Hebrew script is written from right to left rather than left to right. And secondly, it's not an alphabet, it's an abjad. An abjad script is a writing system that uses vowel omission. Usually the only time vowels are put into abjad words is if it's different from the most neutral vowel, which is the mid-central vowel, or schwa. So if the vowel varies like that, they will insert a character to represent that, but normally the vowel that gets used is just the mid-central vowel, and generally, well, the mid-central vowel is always omitted in abjad words. So oftentimes, they may not have any vowels written in them at all. So take, for instance, if I transliterate this Hebrew word here into the Latin script, it goes SKVTLND. No vowels. Although technically the character that got transliterated here as V, that one can also represent vowels in the Hebrew script, but there need to be diacritics attached for it to count as the vowel. I think this is just an error with the translation program, which is, again, Google Translate. Just a problem with it because Google Translate is hardly flawless. If you want something to be translated accuracy, either learn the language yourself or find someone who already knows it. So I was not expecting to get a flawless translation here, but if we were to assume that the letter V is supposed to be a vowel, and we're not certain which vowel specifically because the type of diacritic varies specifically what vowel it is, but I think it's easy to assume what vowel it is. If we assume that, then the way this Hebrew word would be pronounced is Scotland. I mean, who would have guessed that? A proper noun has the same pronunciation when read out in a different language. So obviously that was a bit of a dead end, because it didn't actually change the name. It would have just changed some of the letters, but it would still be pronounced exactly the same thing, exactly the same way. So then I tried to look up Nahua. Problem is, Nahua is not a language in Google Translate, and the few Nahua translator softwares I was able to find on the internet, they didn't do proper nouns, so I couldn't actually find the Nahua word for Scotland. So, at that point, all I could really do was guess as to what it was called. Now, since the first Europeans to discover the Nahua people were Spaniards, it would be reasonable to assume that the Nahuatl word for Scotland is the Spanish word for Scotland, which is Escocia. It's also reasonable to assume that they instead based their word for Scotland off of the word that the Scots used to call their country. Now, at that period of time, in the early 16th century, Scotland was multilingual. Scottish Gaelic was spoken in some parts, Lowland Scots in others, and English was also becoming a dominant language in Scotland. So, because of the different languages there were different names for Scotland. I've been having trouble figuring out what the Scots word for Scotland was. My guess is it's probably just Scotland. But the English word for Scotland is obviously Scotland. The Scottish Gaelic word, however, is Alba. However, that still doesn't help me, because either word we use for the Nahua word for Scotland, it just doesn't sound very Nahuatl. And I keep confusing the terms Nahua and Nahuatl. Nahua is the ethnic group, Nahuatl is the language. But, anyways, the point is, if I wanted to find a Jewish or an Aztec word for Scotland, it just didn't seem authentic enough. So, that begs the question, what am I going to call the new kingdom? I decided to go with this. Alba Nahua Judea. And we'll call it Alban. Welcome to the Kingdom of Alba Nahua Judea, Jewish Aztec Scotland. Okay, now I spent an entire episode talking about that and doing nothing, so let's unpause.